The Bungie developers have been coming under a lot of stress these last few years after Sony purchased them for $3.6 billion, announcing it in 2021 and then finalizing the deal back in 2022. A lot of people saying kind of like a comeback to, Microsoft's purchasing Activision Blizzard, but this was really Sony wanting to diversify its live service titles. Now, it has been 3 years since they've finalized the deal, and they have nothing, right? I mean, Destiny 2 is in a okay spot, but after several years of the game being out and how long it's been, people are craving the next Bungie game. And Destiny 2 is still getting some solid player numbers after releasing constant updates and, all of the problematic post-launch support that they've had, but their numbers are still okay. But their revenue targets have not been what Sony has, wanted out of a $3.6 billion investment, especially after $400 million being spent on a different live service title that Sony thought was going to be the next huge thing. Now, Marathon is Bungie's next big game. It's an extraction shooter. It's kind of based off of their really old game called Marathon. I have no knowledge of it whatsoever, but it has the same name. That's all I know about it. But it's an extraction shooter. And with the amazing launch of Arc Raiders, another extraction shooter, Bungie has a really good opportunity here to capitalize on people playing extraction shooters, but they have to get it right. And they had playtests a few months back, and then they delayed the game. And then Sony stated that, hey, look, we're going to have it out before March or by March 2026. It's going to release. This is a game that Bungie needs to nail here. They need to have a solid player base, whether if they're pricing it, whether if it's going to be free to play, because this is going to be a game that is in direct competition now to Arc Raiders. And Arc Raiders has brought the fucking fire. So it's going to be a real test for Bungie to see if they can actually still compete in another extraction shooter market. And it's also been leaked, that they are in extremely early development of Destiny 3. And let's be honest here, Sony spending $3.6 billion with a B, spending $1 billion on keeping employees at the studio through financial reasons and just making sure that they can keep as much talent as possible because they understand that it's the people at the studio, not the studio name itself. They spent a lot of money on this studio and have come nowhere near a return on investment. And they weren't even that much, realistically. I mean, I think they were overpriced, but you know what? In the grand scheme of video game acquisitions, they were pretty inexpensive. You'd think, okay, we can make this money back in 3 to 5 years maybe, right? But they have not made that money back. Now, Sony's probably telling them, hey, look, we know Marathon's coming out. We're not confident in it. You need to work on something else that is going to bring in the big bucks because this isn't going to work. So Bungie's like, hey, look, Destiny 3, right? Destiny 2 is going to keep getting some light support, but Destiny 3 has to be our main focus, especially with Marathon, more likely than not, just not succeeding. I mean, with all the controversy around the stolen art that happened months ago, and then finally finishing that problem, and just all of the issues that Bungie in the core studio has been having, and Sony trying to fold them into PlayStation studios as well instead of giving them their promised independence, it's just not a good look. And I worry for the people who work at Bungie, right? You want them to succeed, you want them to make good games. But with Sony breathing down their neck because this studio is unable to have a solid return on investment, it's just not a good thing. I feel like Bungie is in a really tight spot here where they're probably not going to come out of this on top. They're more likely than not going to get fully folded into PlayStation Studios. People are going to get fired. People are going to get laid off. Their tech, game engine, everything that they do is going to get folded into all the PlayStation Studios, and the Destiny IP might be repurposed, might be created by a different developer. Marathon might be sold off. Destiny might be sold off. I mean, the studio is good at one thing right now, and they're really even good at it, right? They're supported by a community that has stuck with them for a long time. They're supported by the ideals of, look, this is the original Halo developer. This is the original developer that created one of the greatest Xbox games of all time, right? We want to make sure they continue. But a lot of people, especially at Sony, have to be real here and think a lot of these people don't make Halo anymore. A lot of the people that made Halo at Bungie moved to 343, are at Halo Studios, and they're just not working on Halo. These are not the same developers that created one of the greatest Xbox exclusives of all time. They're just not there. It is just studio namesake at this point. Now, there's still a lot of talented people at Bungie, and they deserve, whatever their success or failure that's coming to them. If they cannot develop a solid game, they don't deserve to stick around. It's just how it works in this world and how it works in the game industry. Now, when you treat them poorly, that's a bit different. When you forcibly hostile take over them into your company because you feel like, it's a quicker way of actually managing the studio instead of just letting them have independence like you said you would after an acquisition, it's kind of fucking scummy, Sony. But let's hope that Sony can give them hopefully just a bit more time and Bungie can redeem themselves here. Because I think they can save themselves. They just have to make sure to make a solid game. They have to make sure they have a player first mentality. We saw exactly what happened with Battlefield 6. DICE, or Battlefield Studios, focused on a player first, player oriented development cycle, and they succeeded. They had the top selling game of this year. They might outsell fucking Call of Duty. The only other time that's happened is when Hogwarts Legacy came out. The only other time that's happened in a decade. It is insane that Battlefield 6, a direct competitor to Call of Duty, might actually thrash them this year, and I hope to see it, because Battlefield 6 deserves it, through all of the development woes that 2042 went through all of the successes that they've had. They made a solid fucking game. If Bungie can go into it with, look, a player-first mentality, get people, get players, do betas, do alphas, get people playing the game and playtesting the game to test how good it actually could be, you can make a really successful Destiny 3, you can make an amazingly successful Marathon, but they have to do it right. And right now, hopefully, by the next 3 months where they release Marathon, they can get it right.